have like
21-inch CRT.
I did
3 parents to help carry it.
I did have a 19-inch CRT, and it was so heavy. Or like I had a few Sonic like G series.
Okay, cool. So where?
How are we doing on the audio quality out there? Do you know yet?
We're doing good. Last time we did it. It's not a good last time.
Okay, good.
And we're all set to go. We're all set to go. We're like whenever he wants to.
Yeah, great.
This webpage almost loaded, man.
Or you stay on these best seats in the house.
Anybody else is taking this?
That's what we did two phone lines. And my favorite though was like you really wanted like to download it overnight. You're like, oh man. This thing's like 28 minutes.
Yeah, good to go.
And then it didn't get any better.
I mean, I can't change my presentation now.
Right, yeah, like new slides.
Because I had AT&T at home in Kentucky, like right out in the Green area, and I got 1 megabyte per second download, and it's and then it's like, but now like if you get AT&T, it's like internet or Comcast and you so it's like you only get like 4. It's only got 4. Where's the
Not even actually.
Good. So
yeah, and it's,
since
yeah, it's like
You can't do anything.
so I just want to make sure it's like
I'm on DSL, but because I'm on.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be starting in about 1 minute.
Backbone ones, so it's a lot cheaper.
Oh wow, that's like really good. Cut off from here. Hello on the web. Excellent. Well, hi.
Hi.
Thank you guys very, very much for coming. My name is Eric Gross. I'm the co-founder of the Tech Academy, and I really, really appreciate you guys showing up for this. I'm really excited about this opportunity we have. I'm about to introduce Jonathon. Jonathon Hensley is the CEO of Emerge Interactive. It was my pleasure to be able to sit down with him for about a half an hour on our weekly podcast and get to know him a bit. And especially the subject he's here to talk about, I'm excited to hear his presentation. I'll tell you why. One of the chief things we have happen for students at our school is they learn the technical data, but then they really wonder, okay, so what is it that the people at the other end of the pipeline here, the people that are going to be hiring, what are they looking for in a developer? And that addresses technical, but it also addresses personality and teamwork and fit and that sort of thing. So rather than just getting that from what we have in our curriculum, which we feel pretty good about, we would like to hear from people actually out in the industry with some 20 years of experience in the industry about what they look for in a developer. So please join me in welcoming Jonathon Hensley.
Well, thank you for that introduction, and I'm really excited to be here and talking with all of you today. I'm going to spend probably about 15-20 minutes going over a few things about what I look for in a developer and a little bit of context around that. Then I'd like to open it up for the rest of our time to do a Q&A. So I am pretty easygoing, just so you know, no questions are off limits. I just want to have a great open discussion and make sure you guys get some value out of the time we have. So starting off, I'll just give you a little bit of a background on myself and Emerge. So I grew up in Silicon Valley. We just talked about this on the podcast actually, and I had the opportunity to be in an environment which was just teeming with technology and access at the time. So being able to have access to user groups and communities around Apple and HP technology, writing early software. So I've been doing this since I was about 7 years old, building computers and writing software. I haven't written software for quite some time now, but I have kind of a long tenure of being in this industry and understanding, how it moves and works. In 1998, I founded Emerge Interactive. Started off as a technology consultancy, and then over the years we evolved into a digital experience agency where we focus on advisory services, heavily on user experience and technology, mostly around web, mobile, and connected products. So just kind of give you a quick high-level understanding of where I come from. Today my role in the company is as CEO, and I'm our chief strategist and creative officer, and oversee a lot of the consulting and advisory work that we do with our clients. So when we talk about great people, I wanted to talk a little bit about Emerge from the context of our people. So, one of the things that I think makes our company very special, and any company special, are the people. And so when we are going to have a conversation as we go through the time here about, what we look for in a developer, I wanted to put a little bit of context about one of the things that we talk about a lot at Emerge, which is this is a creative process, and it's about creating with great people. And at the end of the day, after everything that you've heard, bottom line is, if I'm going to choose to work with somebody, it's because I want to spend time with them. I spend more time working than I do at home or anywhere else, and I want to make sure I really enjoy the company of the people that I work with, and I think that's what makes, for me, Emerge very special. And I'm sure everybody that works at Emerge has their own version of that story, but I just wanted to share a little bit of that as it gives some context and insight to where we are. So this also just gives you a little bit of an example of the clients that we work with. So we've done this for type of work for years for startup companies, for Fortune 500, 100 organizations, and the bigger the company, the more complexity, the more that you have to understand all of the moving pieces and what your role as a developer could look like, as you choose to begin your career or maybe a second career in navigating what type of companies you want to work with and what's going to be expected of you. And we can talk more about that in the Q&A, but it will give some context overall to what we're going to talk about today. And with that, I want to actually take a step backwards when we talk about what do we look for in a developer. So me, being a quote-unquote nerd, I love to look at history for the reference. Okay, so when might seem a little abstract, but bear with me. I want to talk about engineering. So one of the biggest advantages in modern time that we've, has been the advent of the wheel, right? Arguably, that led to the innovation of mass transit. That turned in to Tesla today. Right? I know you're a huge fan. I was telling him a story earlier. We had an opportunity to do a tour of their factory last week, and it's unbelievable. That also, we take another step back in history and we look at the innovation of the printed press and what has happened there. And that, all of a sudden, 2001, we have, Wikipedia has launched. And all of a sudden, you start to see that a progression of innovation is moving a little bit faster and a little bit faster. Went from 3,500 BC, to the 1900s. Now we're, looking at innovation from 14th century to modern times. This turns into the first release of 2007 of Amazon releasing the Kindle. Apple, of course, releases the personal computer for the first time in 1985, which I'm sure we're all pretty familiar with. And then, of course, we have modern times. So the reason why I bring this up is that innovation, technology, developers, engineers, however you want to frame yourselves, have done amazing things for a long time. And the way I look at developers today is simply this. We're obsessed with big ideas as a culture today, and we idolize their champions. For me personally, I idolize the makers. That's the difference for me. Code does not change the world or make things happen. Makers change the world and make things happen. And developers are the modern artists and makers of our time. That's you guys. Okay. So that gives you a little bit of context of how I think about what a developer is. Now let's talk about what I look for in a developer. But I wanted to provide a little context around that. So let's start off with skills. So skills to me are table stakes. So it's really important that you have a wide breadth of understanding of the technologies that you're interested in, whether they be front-end based technology, server-side application-based technologies, data infrastructure, whatever that may be. That's it's fantastic. But that's the prerequisites to the game if you want to be a developer. And different organizations will have different expectations of what level that skill is at. But it's really important that's the point of entry in this industry. So what I'm going to talk about because I'm not the tech guy anymore. We have an amazing tech team at Emerge, and CTO who leads that. I'm not going to talk about technology. I'm going to talk about the other skills that I think are equally as important to the core skills of being able to do the work. So first one is striving for excellence. Quality is absolutely mission critical in this business. A lot of technology is being built as a disposable asset these days, and we see that a lot in especially websites. They can just come and go. They're being commoditized through services like Squarespace, and they're doing a great job of helping put the brochure war out there in the world and making it easy for people. And that's nothing wrong with that. But when I look at what a developer is doing, they're bringing in the ability to solve a problem with technology. And that striving for excellence is about thinking about performance, things like scalability, compatibility, maintainability of the technology, and even security. So it's a different lens on what excellence looks like. And to share an example of, we used to have an engineer with us, a wonderful person that was really passionate about accessibility. And for those, if you're not familiar with accessibility, it's allowing people access to your digital property, website, or application, whether you have a disability, whether it be hearing impairment or visual impairment, so you can navigate. And it's basically inclusivity of the web is one way to think about it. And he had this passion, and he started to share this passion, and what he changed for us was this perspective of accessibility used to be a requirement as far as somebody needs to be compliant. He realized it shouldn't be a compliancy issue, it should be a measure of quality. It should break down the barrier of thinking that accessibility inhibits creativity, that it inhibits the functionality of your application. No, it pushes you to be better. And so when I say that I look for people to strive for excellence, I'm looking for people who have those qualities, who have passions, who have the ability to take something and infuse it into the organization, because we're only as good at a merge as the people that are with us. And so he left his legacy with us because he changed the way we think. And that was really, really powerful. The second one is always being curious. So for me, what that really boils down to is embracing change. Obviously, we all know in this room, technology is moving quickly all the time, and we're dealing with rapid change and evolution. And as developers, many times there are a lot of variables you do not control. Whether it be the technology, Apple comes out with an update to iOS, Chrome has an update that comes out, whatever you just built breaks, so the continuity of, yes, you deal with this all the time, don't you? These are significant challenges, and something that, you have to be curious all the time. What you built is never going to be necessarily done. You have to be okay with that. And you have to realize that your curiosity for the next thing is a strength. Sometimes I've heard a lot of frustrations that build up over time about, I just built this, I just finished it, and I just want to do something different. And I get that. But at the same time, this is part of the industry, and if you can embrace that, you can turn that constant curiosity and change into a huge strength for yourself personally and for any organization you have the opportunity to work for. The third thing is a thirst for learning. So for me, it's really understanding how do you develop mastery, whether it be around a specific technology or a solution that is in place, or a product that you might be working on, or an integration point. And integration issues are rampant, especially as we now have at almost a new precedence, a set of legacy technologies that have been opened up over the last decade, but they're now out of date and needing massive innovation or modernization to take place. So that ability to work across the spectrum of technology, willing to learn and really embrace both legacy and new technologies and understand how you build those bridges, is going to be an incredibly powerful skill. And it's really important. We run into this with our clients all the time. They may not understand all the touch points, but we're always looking at how do we integrate. Or they want this piece off the shelf, but they want it to work with this other system that they have. And so that ability to think as integrators and not building always from the ground up is also a really critical skill, because it gives you a new path to think about how you solve the problem, and it will be a huge skill to serve you and any company that you're working with. One of the key things that happened, for me as I worked, over the last 20 years, is seeing engineers grow. I've had that opportunity time and time again, and this has been one of the most fascinating for me, because as the technology has evolved so quickly, the ability and that thirst to learn, you can't teach that. This is just part of who you are. So I can teach people about different technologies, I can teach them what to do, but I can't change who they are, nor do I want to. So that ability to be a constant learner is just such a powerful asset and skill. And so again, it's something we really look for across any position, not just developers. And it's really a powerful asset as you go forward. How am I doing on time? You okay?
You're doing great. About 15.
The other thing that is critical is excellent communication. So you need to be able to engage a client, whether it's externally or internally, and that engagement is critical. There's, the technology that you might be building to most is completely invisible. And I stole this story, but it's really true. This is really complex stuff. Most people don't understand it yet, and the majority of what you create, when you're developing, is unseen. So how do you communicate the value of that? How do you explain how it works is also critical to your success. And we really look for people who can be client-facing. We don't want to have that old idea of thinking of well, let's just get a bunch of engineers and we'll throw them in a dark corner. They'll code away with their headphones on, and the clients never have to talk to them.
Funyuns and no-dos.
Yeah. It's like Office Space. Engineers aren't good with clients. It should be exactly the opposite. You should be comfortable having that conversation because you're the authority. You understand the technology, you're working on it, you're building it, you create it, you know what the quirks are of the platform that you're working through. That is invaluable information, insight to your team and to the client. And so knowing that you have that opportunity and that ability is a huge asset. And so again, that's another critical thing that we look for when we hire a developer. So, and again, I said this at the beginning, but most importantly of all, we look for people that we want to work with. So, finding the culture fit is important. A place where you feel that you're supported and that you have, your talents are embraced and you can be pushed to be better. And I think that is always something that we strive for at Emerge. And I'm really proud because we have an incredible team that are all self-starters. They push themselves. And it makes my job, I feel very fortunate to have that opportunity. So with that, I'll open up to questions.
Can you speak to how you actually go about evaluating technical expertise? I know you're not the developer anymore, but internally, what do you guys do to assess that?
Sure. Well, since I'm not involved, I'm probably going to make some mistakes here about our current process, so I'm going to be really candid, especially since I have developers from my team in the audience. But, usually what we do is we do group interviews is part of the process with people from the development team who get to assess and talk about, specific technical skills and interests. A lot of time, and maybe you can tell me if we still do this. We used to do code sampling requirements. Mm-hmm. So, doing a lot of actual code testing, review, and exercises where they'd actually have to show some of those programmatic problem-solving skills actually right in real time in the interview process. Okay. So those are definitely things that we do in the technical side of it. I can also say that, if you're looking at a job like Microsoft, we did a project for them a few years back where they're doing the same type of thing. Mm-hmm. They're even before you can submit a resume, they might make you solve some problems. and submit code resources before you can submit a resume even. So.
How do you assess these things, these soft skills, these personality and workability and like creating a team kind of skills?
I think that's where the group interview actually is so critical, because if it's, some of these things through an interview process, if you've got a job requirement out there, you need to fill it. You have it out there for a reason. So time is important. And I think it's showing up, one, we see when people show up prepared, and they're not scrambling to find their bearings in the room. And being in a group interview can be a little intimidating with a set of people, right? So if you can come prepared, do your homework if you've got accepted in. Make sure you know about the company, you have questions prepared. I think sometimes where I've seen the interview process fall flat is there's no questions for us. It's just they want to hear what we want to know about them, and that's it. And we like to see the proactiveness come through, because it shows thoughtfulness. It shows that they're analyzing the company, and are we a good fit for them, and allows us to have a much more robust conversation.
That's excellent. Do you do any kind of like get input from the stakeholders or the people who were there afterwards? Do you actually like have a formal process for what did you guys think of that person that came in, or how do you handle that?
Yeah, so we typically have a multi-stage interview process with different groups. So we'll do, there'll be team interviews and there'll be cross-team interviews that will take place with a candidate. So a candidate for a job may also have a meeting with somebody from the creative, in a group setting, with somebody from the creative team, somebody from our producer and account management team. They'll have some sort of, manager level interview interaction as well. It'll take place to help facilitate that.
Right.
That gives us the best chance of kind of getting a 360 picture on it. If a developer can't be successful without a great producer who's managing the client and running the project, and a producer needs to know that they can count on that person. So if that dynamic is really important, so we try to flush out as much as one can in the interview process.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So I can go into an interview and tell someone that I'm curious and love to learn and all the things that you've mentioned, but you'd be having to take my word for it. So can you give examples of ways that people have conveyed that other than just stating it?
Sure. Well, going beyond state, it opens up a dialogue that maybe shifts the conversation in the room during the interview process. So as an example of, you say, well, I'm a very curious person. My first reaction is go, curious about what? Where do you spend your free time? What do you like to do? I'm trying to understand your passion, right? So, I'm gonna know that that's sincere if you have a clear answer for that. If you say, well, I'm really in, I've been studying around, PHP as an example, and I'm really, been excited about that, but, there's this new framework that's come out that I'm super excited about. I've been spending time on that, and here's why. I have a very tangible, example of your curiosity and how you're investing into your growth.
Okay.
Good question.
I have a question. So you gave what you look for in a developer, and you gave the general rule of someone who you want to work with. Would you say that there's any particular characteristic that has kind of turned you off, or like you found has been an issue like in the past? Like kind of the flip side of it, anything that you look for not to have in a developer?
Like red flags.
Yeah, red flags.
Close your ears, guys. That's a great question. Well, I'm going to answer it in two different ways. Okay. So the first part is, I think that there has been in the past, in the kind of the traditional technology industry, there's a lot of stereotypes around developers. That's all. It's bullshit. So you just need to not have any of that attitude going into it. It's great developers come from every walk of life, and you just need to be more open to that, in this time. Second, I think is, and this is a personal opinion, is I think that you watch out for ego. That's my big thing and stuff, because we're a team. It's not the one person show. So for me, it's if you've got to work across teams, and one of the big things that we continuously are trying to work on and improve is breaking down silos between user experience design and technology. We're all working as one team to solve a problem for a client. We don't have any value to the client unless we've solved that problem and we help them get to the outcome they're trying to get to. I don't care if it's a great experience if it's not an effective experience. So bottom line there, I need somebody who can work across the team and is really open to that, and is going to be pragmatic about, you're right, I would do it this way, but maybe we need to look at it a different way. I need to see there's an openness to the problem solving skills and not the way that they've done it in the past and just assuming that's the right way for this team or for that client.
That's excellent.
When you're looking at resumes, are there anything that either gets your attention or gets it in a negative way, either way?
Darn, I haven't looked at a resume for that in quite some time. Very candid.
Okay.
It's going to come down. I mentioned this a little bit earlier on. Skills are a prerequisite of the game, so I expect to see all that stuff. What I am interested in, honestly, for if I was to look at a resume today, is I'd like to see if there's an emphasis in any specialization. Because I think you have to make a choice at some point in your career in technology. You have to decide either I'm going to be really great and I'm going to look at breadth and I'm going to be kind of have awareness of a little bit of everything, or I'm going to have depth and I'm going to become really great at this area. And that defines what opportunities are available to you in the marketplace. So I'm going to be looking for a certain level of depth for many of the positions at Emerge, because we do want people to be able to move across project types, and we're really, it's really great to have a team that can be so fluid. But at the same time, mastery is really critical, because of a lot of our clients, we're developing mission critical software. So that skill set, that ability to analyze and understand what's possible with the technology is really critical.
Programming languages that you use for your products?
Well, we use a bunch. We're fairly technology agnostic. I know that's not a great answer. Java. Brenna, help me out, please. Sorry.
Python, JavaScript, all the front-end dev languages, PHP.
A lot of frameworks. Yeah, probably the one that we do the least work in is over the last 20 years has been .NET. We've just been plugged into different technology ecosystems and stuff. So lots of integration with Microsoft product, but not a lot of actual direct .NET development. But it also kind of depends on. Every company makes different choices in their technology stacks, so that's always a big deal. So like we did a project for. Pierre Meteor, he was the founder of eBay, as an example. And, for him, it can't be Microsoft. It can only be open source technologies, right?
You notice I didn't say cold computing.
Yeah. We've moved on. But yes, we used to do that too. That dates us. It's dependent. If you're doing a lot of, I would say smaller business stuff, you're not going to get into some of the heavy Java development and some of the other heavier languages. So it just kind of depends where you're at. So I'm sorry, that's not a very direct answer, but it's an honest one.
It's okay. When you're as an individual doing a second career, do you care about what was done before much?
I don't personally. To me, if I
space on a resume.
Yeah, if I'm curious about most developers I know didn't start as developers or maybe even have an IT background to begin with, to be honest. So, one of the best developers I've ever known had a history major. I would try to, when I was hiring him, this was 10 years ago, but, I'd like to know, you had this incredible curiosity for history. How would you apply that to your job today? And he had a great answer. He's like, well, I love to look historically back to find patterns so I can solve it and predict, outcomes in the future. I was like, sold.
Yeah.
That's a great answer. So, so I look for correlation of like, why did you pick a path, or make the trajectory, or what did you take from that experience, maybe most importantly, and how would you apply that experience to, this new career path. But otherwise, it doesn't matter to me personally.
Kind of piggybacking on that, what if someone has like a very spotty work history, personal or economic?
Well, today it's kind of tricky. There's people will have 20 jobs on their resume, and maybe none of them are over a year, right? And then some people have tenure at companies for a decade or more. It's partly of a byproduct of our time and just how things have evolved. So I do like to see some tenure, but the most important reason is just understanding why, for me. And to the extent that it's my business, okay, to be clear. Because a lot of times it's not. I've met wonderful people who are brilliant engineers, and they are, they were just like, I was finding out what I liked. I was deving maybe the whole time even, but I was just trying to figure out, what was interesting to me. And not everybody, most people obviously, right, don't leave college knowing what they want to do. They change their careers a bunch of times. So to me, it's just not that big of a deal. And certainly, like the freelance market, we run into that all the time. People decide, well, I'm going to take a break from this and I'm going to go freelance, and so all of a sudden they've got in a year 20 things. That's okay. So it's just, to me, knowing, okay, well, what'd you learn from those 20 things? It kind of goes back to the same thing. Like, I just want to understand how you're going to apply the experience forward, and give me a set of context of like, are you looking for something short term or long term? It's and it's okay if it's short term. It's helpful to know.
Excellent.
What are some things when you're looking at companies, finding things about the company, especially like their cultural group? It's hard when you're looking at their website to get a sense of what the culture is like. What are some ways to get an understanding of that?
Well, I have to be totally honest with you. I have not looked for a job in a very long time.
Your people should be worried if you were.
Yeah. I think there's. I can tell you what I would hypothetically do today. Probably the first thing is I would start trying to reach out on LinkedIn and find people who work there and see if they're willing to grab coffee and just learn about the business. I would be proactive. I would go after, figuring out, reading what are people saying in the trades. I would try to understand what are the good and the bad things that they're saying about them. And I take all of that with a grain of salt, but I would then try to verify and get some information from, reaching out to individuals. And I think, I find a lot of people tend to be pretty accessible. Nate, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you've been in recruiting for ages. Nate Webb is our Director of Business Development at Emerge, but he has a huge background in recruitment, so maybe he could share.
I would echo that statement. You're not information, you don't phrase it in the sense of, hey, I'm being put to be on. Especially important when people
But I would. I wouldn't call the main number of the company. Well, honestly, because it's dev work, so it's all digital, and so that should be kind of like path. I think reaching out to somebody who would be a colleague at the company for an informational interview, that through LinkedIn or other sort of networks like that is going to get you much further than calling the main number at a company.
Yeah. There's a lot of truth. A lot of gatekeepers that stop you from going past. Yep. Keenan, you would raise your hand.
This might be kind of like an obvious answer also, but you should feel comfortable asking those types of questions at your interviews, at each round of interviews, because that's a big indicator of the culture of the company. That's something that I did, and every time through all of my rounds of interviews, it was answered really well as far as why do people like to work with this company. So that's a way to feel out if you want to work there.
Great.
I just piggybacking on it. It's a two-way relationship, right? So when you go on an interview, you're dating. It's not you're picking them and they're picking you. It's not one-sided.
Yep.
So, I think having that, feeling confident in that is a good place to come in.
How do you know somebody's like you go to an interview, how do you know somebody's a bad candidate? You're walking in, let's say you are credentialed. But let's say you, for whatever reason, it wasn't a good indicator that you probably don't want to take that.
Can you repeat that question? I didn't quite hear that either.
It's
So I'll try to do my best. Tell me if this is accurate. So, how do you determine if you have the credentials for the job? How do you recognize whether it's a good fit for you or not? Okay. So, one, I think it's Sure. I think it's understanding. It's asking those questions in the interview process, I think, is really important. And also, even, it's a soft thing, but understand the values of the company, honestly. Understand the people of the company. Is it a bunch of, A-type personalities that it's a really, maybe it's an aggressive work environment, or, you are really looking for mentorship. That's important. That can be, in small companies that can be hard. I mean, candidly, I think that's something that we even, we continuously try to work and figure out how we can do better jobs with that, because, as a small team, we all do a lot. But if you're in a junior position and that's really essential, then, it's important. One of our senior engineers and solution architects, he's a great natural mentor. That's a skill he has. He's really happy to stop, take the time, program with you, review code, understand that workflow, ask, who in your team, could I go to for that kind of support if I was to join the company? I mean, they should be able to answer that question.
It's a great answer. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for doing this.
My pleasure.
How about a hand for Jonathan? Oh, absolutely. Yeah. All right, good. Just a couple of closing words from me, and I can't believe we had the opportunity to do this. I really appreciate you taking the time to do it, and I can tell from the group you have in the audience here that you have a wonderful environment at your company, and that's a created thing. That doesn't happen by accident, so that's wonderful. I want to take a moment here to just comment upon something that has been on my mind over the last couple of days, and I think is useful either for someone who's trying to break into the industry or might be thinking about creating their own business or that sort of thing. I have a great deal of admiration for people that are entrepreneurially minded. I was brave enough or crazy enough, according, based on my wife's opinion, to start this school, and obviously it's worked out, but not everything does, when you have a creative idea. So there was a comment that was made yesterday at a workshop I was at the Oregon Entrepreneurs Network relative to how cool you think your idea is versus what the marketplace actually tells you about it. I remember I was in a room with a bunch of people that, they've got their cool idea and they're passionate about their idea, which is great, but they're so passionate about it, they're thinking, wow, other people need to know about this and see how cool it is, and I can build a business around it, or I can monetize it in some way, or I can get other people on board with the mission or whatever it is. And that's wonderful. Passion is absolutely fantastic. I don't like working around people that don't have a lot of passion for things. It speaks directly to what Jonathon was talking about in terms of what are you passionately interested in or curious about. These things are wonderful. There's a flip side to that, though. If you're unable to take another person's point of view about the thing you're utterly passionate about and actually examine their point of view, your chances for success greatly diminish. And what I mean by that is you're not the one that gets to decide whether or not other people like it, whether other people like the idea. And if someone doesn't, and you take that personally, and instead of looking at their point of view and learning something from it, you instead start to defend your own point of view, your failure is guaranteed. It's just the way it is. Now, this can apply to an entrepreneurial environment, just like the people at the OEM yesterday. You want to start a business. You better be willing to be wrong about some aspect of your idea. But it also applies to the job search. In fact, it applies directly to the parts that Jonathon spoke to today, which is you're in there and you actually got the interview. You got the opportunity to communicate with people, whether it's through an informational interview or the phone interview, or you're actually sitting down meeting people at that company. This is your opportunity, obviously, in terms of the dating sort of parallel, to find out whether or not they have what you want, and for them to find out the same thing about you. But if what you're trying to do is assert how right you are about things, about your preconceived ideas about things, and are unwilling to look at whether or not you could actually, could be a possibility, be wrong, it won't go very, very well. Now, this is one of those intangibles that you can't put into a curriculum. We do speak to it here at the Tech Academy in terms of the point of view when you're doing your job search. But at the end of the day, this is about you and your own self-examination of whether or not you're willing to actually look at your own points of view and consider whether or not they're actually 100% accurate. I found that people who are willing to do that, to step back and consider another person's point of view, do very, very well in life. So this is, again, one of those intangibles. You can't put it in a skill set on your resume, right? But it could be the thing that helps you start that new business successfully, helps you get that new job successfully. So I just wanted to give that to you as an experience I was thinking about recently. The last thing I want to do is just take a couple moments and talk about where you are and how you could be involved or help other people be involved. This is the Tech Academy. We run a software developer boot camp. It is an avenue whereby people with no or a lot of experience in computers, you can have little to none, or you could be already really experienced, can become well-rounded entry-level software developers. And I could speak to you for a long time about what we consider to be a well-rounded entry-level developer. The point is, it's someone that can actually get a job, start their career, and build from there. And we do that through a unique model that's self-paced and is open enrollment. So we have people starting all the time. We have hundreds of graduates. We have hundreds of people that have been placed in jobs, and we have a phenomenal staff. And I hope you have an opportunity to meet some of them here. I'm very, very proud of the people we have here. If you or anyone you know is considering breaking into the technology industry, we have a way for them to do that, either through a full-time or a part-time avenue. So thank you for coming. There is a survey we usually ask people who are not students to do, just because when we invite people into our home here, we want to find out how we're doing at that and whether what we're presenting is of any value. So those of you who are new to this, if you could take the time to fill out a survey, it's I think 3 or 4 questions tops, it would help us to be better at what we do. And again, thank you all for coming. I appreciate it very much.
John's entourage.
As long as it has some value for you, I'm really happy to do it. From time to time we will. It just depends on how, because we're small,